All right, over the past week, thousands of people had taken to the streets of Cuba, joining one of the country's largest demonstrations in decades to protest the failings of the communist government. Though government critics face harsh punishment for dissent in Cuba, waves of demonstrations have surged in cities across the country. And they've been finding support here in the United States as well, where demonstrations have been popping up. Now, last week, Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart introduced a resolution calling for international solidarity with the Cuban people in their quest for freedom. The resolution also condemns the brutal oppression of the communist dictatorship in Cuba. Joining me now to talk about all of this and more is Congressman Michael Waltz. He's a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and is one of the original co-sponsors of the resolution introduced last week. He represents the 6th Congressional District of Florida. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you, Tony.
All right, how significant, you represent Florida, large Cuban population there. How significant is the protest or the protests that are taking place there in Cuba?
Yeah, I think it's important that people understand that this is the most significant level of protest we've seen against the Cuban regime, I believe, in its history. Since the Castro, led revolution overthrew the previous government led by Batista, we've seen mass migrations, people voting with their feet and trying to come to the United States for the freedoms that we enjoy here. But I don't think we've ever seen people take such a stand at such risk. I mean, folks need to understand just how great we have it here in this country, where we can peacefully protest, where our voice can be heard. But somewhere like Cuba, you are risking torture, you're risking death, and not just you for taking a stand, your entire family also being imprisoned and at best thrown into abject poverty. So it is quite brave and commendable, but it also speaks to a level of desperation that these people are truly facing right now.
I've gotten reports over the last week of religious leaders being targeted by the regime. In fact, a little bit later in the program, we're going to be talking with a religious leader, head of a seminary in Cuba, is going to be joining us to give us a firsthand account of what is occurring there. So, yeah. Congressman, you were one of the original co-sponsors to this resolution calling for solidarity. Why is it important that we stand with the people of Cuba that want freedom right now?
Well, they need to hear that America has their back. And whether it is the Green Movement that took a stand against the Iranian regime, or Hong Kongers taking a stand, waving American flags, reading the Declaration of Independence against the Chinese Communist Party, they need to hear that Americans have their back. We stand with them. And in the case, unfortunately, of the current administration, the Biden administration, that's been so relatively quiet on the issue, that there is going to be pressure, bottoms-up pressure from the American people to stand with the Cuban people as they make this, brave and incredible protest against authoritarianism that is communism and that is socialism.
Congressman Waltz, you mentioned the Biden administration's been relatively silent about this, and of all places, I think I found out why. I found it on CNN over the weekend, Inside Politics. I want you to listen to this clip.
The progressive wing of the Democratic Party does not want to go hard against Cuba, against some of the things that the Castro regime may have been a part of, in part because there are some Democrats, there are some progressives who agree with some of those things.
This would affect the progressive wing of the radical left wing of the Democratic Party because they actually support the policies of communist Cuba.
Well, that's right. And you're seeing the progressives' true colors come out, where they've tried to hide a lot of their big policy leaps under the guise of COVID, under the umbrella of equity and equality. Really what this is about socialism, Marxism, and a march towards communism. You saw it just today from the founder of the 1619 Project, who said, the United States was really founded on a basis of maintaining slavery rather than achieving freedom from the British Empire. And she said, look, blacks and whites have never been more equal than they are in Cuba. And you're not going to want to, hear me say this, but it's because of the goodness of socialism. Those were her words. We're hearing that from and you're right. They are equal in Cuba. They're equal in their misery. The Cuban government is often held up for its achievements in medicine. Well, I think the only equality there is that you can't get any. And they can't get any health care. And when you see these people waving American flags and quoting from the Constitution in ways that a lot of Americans can't even do, it really speaks to just how great we have it in this exceptional nation. That, of course, is not perfect. We are all sinners, and this nation is not perfect, but we're all marching to always be better and towards a more perfect union. But you're seeing the progressives' true colors come out. We see it every day in a Pelosi-run Congress where the left really is the tail wagging the dog, and Biden has turned out to be, as predicted, a Trojan horse for the progressives. But man, and their praise for the Cuban regime and their praise for socialism, and then condemnation that it's America's fault, as though socialism being cut off from capitalism is what makes socialism a problem. It is all coming out, and a lot of us can't say we didn't tell you so.
Well, I certainly hope the American people are listening to this, because according to them, equality is abject poverty. That's essentially what they want, because everybody's equal in Cuba. They have nothing in their
because you're taking from one class of people, in the case of BLM and others, one class of people based on their skin color and giving it to the others. Right. So when you constantly, it's a zero-sum game, you're going to drive everything to zero. And that's exactly
you can only
what
do that for so long.
Communism does.
Only do that for so long. You can only do that for so long in socialism, because eventually there's nothing else to take from anybody.
Yeah, that's why it's never worked anywhere around the world. But look, the four-letter word free is really appealing to a lot of people. It's an easy talking point and selling point, and it's a very easy way, an effective way to keep your grip on power. And that's what, at the end of the day, communism is all about. It puts power in the hand of government and bureaucrats rather than the people. And that's why it's antithetical to everything I stand for and we stand for.
Congressman Waltz, I want to get to the issue of Afghanistan as the only Green Beret serving in our nation's Congress, but I want to just make this point about your call for solidarity. I look back to the Arab Spring. I look back to what happened in Hong Kong last year, and just, if our government doesn't touch it, but the American people give oxygen to what is happening in Cuba by saying, we support what you're doing, we're with you. I mean, We're only 90 miles off the coast there. I think we can help them just by giving attention to this, and why we're talking about it even today. So I think you're absolutely spot on. I want to shift to Afghanistan as the United States pulls their military out. We're already seeing the disintegration there. General Petraeus, not necessarily a big fan of his, but he was on CNN over the weekend, and this is what he had to say. Play clip 3, please.
I fear that we will look back and regret the decision to withdraw. And I think, sadly, we may regret that sooner than I had originally thought when I said that right after the decision was announced. Beyond that, I think we'll also look back and regret the hasty way in which we seem to be doing this.
Do you agree with his analysis?
I do, sadly and unfortunately. Look, I understand, been there a long time, hard, expensive, difficult. Where does it all end? I understand all of those arguments. But I ask everyone, that's making those arguments, until terrorism goes away, until Islamic extremism no longer intends to attack the United States, which our intelligence community, Biden's own intelligence community, is very clear that Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and half the world's terrorist groups that exist there still do. Are they going to be better off with a Taliban-run government or the Afghan-run government? And if they still intend to attack us, do we want to fight them over there or back here after they've hit us again in the United States. I want to do it over there. And no one is calling for hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops. We had 2,500 troops there. Tony, we have more military in Italy and Spain than we had in Afghanistan, keeping a lid on terrorism and manning a critical base that is sandwiched between China, Russia, and Iran that we may need one day. And so my biggest fear is the future soldiers, the next generation that have to go back in there, right, just like we did in 9/11, with no bases and local allies that have been massacred. And that's what Petraeus is talking about. And that just breaks my heart.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's why we've been in Europe since World War II. We've kept troops there to keep everything in check. I think you're absolutely right. And I'm afraid we're going to have to be back there sooner than later. Either we fight them here or we fight them there. Congressman Michael Waltz, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tony.